All right, so are you ready to dive into something pretty fascinating today?
Always.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the Texas School Book Depository. You know, the
Yes.
TSBD and its potential connections to the JFK assassination.
Mm.
And we're basing this exploration on a 2006 research article from Dealey Plaza Echo,
Okay.
a British journal dedicated to all things JFK.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's not just another, conspiracy theory blog post.
Right.
This is serious research.
Okay.
And it immediately caught my eye because it uses this intriguing spiderweb metaphor to describe the TSBD.
Oh, wow.
What do you think about that, by the way?
Um,
Does it give you a certain feeling about the place?
yeah, I think like when you hear spider web, it sounds kind of ominous, you know?
Lovely.
Like something's gonna grab you.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like something's lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly.
All these hidden connections you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
And the article's main claim is even more intriguing. It suggests that the TSBD might have been a front for smuggling.
Oh, wow.
Not just books, but weapons and drugs,
Mm-hmm.
with ties to ultra-conservatives
Okay.
and possibly even intelligence agencies.
Wow, that's a pretty bold claim.
Yeah.
Especially given the already charged atmosphere surrounding JFK's assassination.
Exactly.
You have to remember the context.
Right.
Cold War anxieties about communism,
Yeah.
rumors of mafia involvement,
Right.
and the CIA operating in the shadows.
Yeah.
This claim throws a whole new wrench into the mix.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
And the article really focuses on one figure, Joe Bergen,
Okay.
a seemingly ordinary school book salesman.
All right.
But here's the twist.
Okay.
He used to be a Texas Ranger
Oh, wow.
during a time when drug smuggling was rampant.
Now that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Imagine this. A respected school book salesman with a secret past fighting drug trafficking,
Yeah?
particularly routes originating in Mexico,
What?
and involving Chinese opium.
Wow.
What if you found out your dad had that kind of double life?
Seriously.
Yeah,
It's mind-boggling.
it is.
And it gets even wilder.
Okay.
Bergen's son, Joe Jr., actually visited the TSBD before the assassination
Uh-huh.
and saw these incredibly large boxes being moved around.
Okay.
Way too big to just be full of textbooks.
Oh, so this detail feeds right into the ongoing debate about Oswald's rifle
Right.
and whether it could have been smuggled into the building undetected.
Right, exactly.
Those oversized boxes definitely raise questions.
They could have-
held more than just school books.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole Jack Ruby situation.
Right.
The article claims he was involved in both gambling
Okay.
and counterintelligence.
Wow.
How did those two worlds even collide in 1950s, 60s Dallas?
Well, one key concept to understand here is money laundering.
Right.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
You take dirty money,
Okay.
money made from illegal activities. Right. And you run it through a wash cycle of legitimate businesses,
Okay.
like a gambling operation,
Right.
to make it look clean.
So Ruby's dual involvement raises some serious questions about possible connections
It does.
between organized crime
Yeah.
and intelligence operations.
Yeah.
Okay, so money laundering could be the link between Ruby's gambling
Right.
and his alleged counterintelligence work.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the article also talks about the intense pressure
Right.
and harassment
Mhm.
Joe Bergen faced after the assassination.
Uh-huh.
It seems like there was a real human cost
Definitely.
to being connected to this event.
There's a chilling effect that comes with secrecy
Yeah.
and potential cover-ups. You
Yeah.
have to remember,
Yeah.
if powerful people were involved,
Right.
they'd go to great lengths to protect their secrets.
Oh, yeah.
And that could mean silencing anyone who might expose the truth, even if they were just on the periphery of things.
That's a scary thought. It is. And the article dives even deeper into this web
Okay.
by bringing in another school book company,
Okay.
Bob's Merrill,
Okay.
and its alleged ties to William Harvey,
Oh, okay.
a high-ranking CIA figure who some believe was involved in the assassination.
Now, Bob's Merrill was known for publishing intellectual works, but after being acquired by Howard Sams,
Okay.
who had ties to RCA and the National Security Establishment,
Okay.
their focus shifted towards books with a more geopolitical slant.
So a seemingly ordinary school book company
Yeah.
suddenly becomes entangled with the world of espionage and political maneuvering.
Yeah,
That's a huge shift.
it is.
And the article takes us to Indianapolis,
Okay.
where both Boggs Merrill and Eli Lilly,
Uh-huh.
the pharmaceutical giant, were headquartered. The author suggests that Indianapolis could have been a potential hub for the assassination plot. Wait, Eli Lilly,
Yes.
the pharmaceutical company.
Yes. The article points to the fact that Eli Lilly was involved in CIA-funded research on mind control,
Okay.
and that George H.W. Bush later served as a director of the company.
Wow.
It's another thread in this increasingly complex web.
This is getting really interesting.
It is.
It's like peeling back an onion.
Yeah,
And each layer reveals something even more unexpected.
exactly.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
We've got this alleged smuggling operation.
Yeah.
A Texas Ranger with a secret past. A gambling, counterintelligence-linked nightclub owner.
Right.
And now a pharmaceutical company tied to mind control experiments.
Right.
This is a lot.
And all of this is connected to the TSBD,
Right.
the supposed workplace of a lone gunman.
Right.
What we need to do now is delve deeper into Joe Burgeon's experiences.
Okay.
Examine the shadowy world of William Harvey and Bob Smerrill,
Okay.
and explore the alleged Indianapolis connection to the assassination plot.
Right.
It seems like this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It really does.
Yeah.
So we've been uncovering some pretty wild connections between the Texas School Book Depository and this potential web of intrigue
Yeah.
surrounding the JFK assassination.
Right.
Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though, I want to go back to Joe Bergen for a second.
Okay.
The article mentions that after the assassination, he had all these visits from law enforcement. Not officially, but more like casual drop-ins.
Oh, like,
Almost as if they were like comparing notes or something.
yeah.
It is strange, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Especially when you consider that Bergen wasn't actually in Dallas when the assassination took place.
Right.
He was on a business trip in Chicago at the time.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why all these secret meetings at his house?
Yeah, it's very suspicious.
The article suggests it could have something to do with his past as a Texas Ranger. Maybe those agents were old colleagues from that shadowy world.
That's a very plausible theory.
Yeah.
Remember, Texas Rangers were heavily involved in combating drug trafficking. Right.
Bergen would have had firsthand knowledge of those operations,
Right.
the people involved, the routes.
Right.
You can imagine that kind of intel would be valuable to anyone investigating the assassination.
Right.
Especially if there were suspicions of smuggling or other criminal activity.
It makes you wonder what kind of information those agents were hoping to get from Bergen.
Right.
Did they think he knew something specific? Or were they just fishing for anything that could help them piece things together?
It's hard to say. That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's also worth considering the atmosphere at the TSBD immediately after the assassination.
Right.
The article describes a very tense and controlled environment.
Okay.
Intense security, guards everywhere.
Oh, wow.
And everyone was told not to talk to outsiders
Right.
about what had happened.
It definitely sounds like a cover-up, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
A deliberate attempt to control the narrative.
Right.
And make sure only the official story got out.
And remember, this was during the height of the Cold War.
Right.
There was a lot of paranoia about communist influence
Yeah.
and national security threats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In that kind of climate, you can imagine
Yeah.
that even the slightest hint of a conspiracy could be seen as a major threat.
Right.
And if Bergen knew anything,
Yeah.
that could challenge the official narrative.
Right.
Well, that could make him a target.
Which is exactly what seems to have happened.
Yeah.
The article says he became the target of hate mail,
Wow.
harassment,
Yeah.
and even had his house mysteriously set on fire.
Oh my gosh. Those are some serious allegations.
It is.
It really makes you think about the stakes involved.
Right.
If there was a conspiracy to silence those who knew too much,
Yeah.
Bergen's experiences definitely fit the pattern. He had access to information.
Yeah.
He knew people.
Yeah.
And he could have been compromised by his past as a Texas Ranger.
Right.
It's a scary thought.
It is, especially when you consider that it wasn't just Bergen who faced these kinds of pressures.
Right.
His assistant, Dora Newman, became so ill that she had to retire early.
Wow.
And Roy Truly, the superintendent of the TSBD, apparently lived in fear until his death in 1985.
It's like this web of fear.
Right.
And silence was closing in on anyone connected to the TSBD,
Right.
even if they were just tangentially involved.
Right, exactly.
You mentioned William Harvey earlier.
Yeah.
The high-ranking CIA figure who the article suggests.
Right.
was the mastermind behind the assassination.
Yeah, he's a pretty fascinating character.
He is.
The article paints him as this, like, ruthless operative,
right,
deeply involved in covert operations,
yeah,
including attempts to assassinate Fidel Castro.
Wow.
And what's especially interesting is that after he retired from the CIA,
yeah,
he became the law editor for, you guessed it, Bobbs Merrill, the school book company.
Oh, really?
Wait, seriously. The same company that was allegedly smuggling guns and shipping books through the TSBD.
The very same.
Wow.
It almost seems too perfect to be a coincidence, right?
It does.
It really strengthens the idea that these seemingly mundane organizations, like school book companies, could have been entangled in a much larger and darker network.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little more.
Okay.
You mentioned that Harvey was a high-ranking CIA figure.
Right.
What kind of power did he wield within the agency?
Yeah.
And how might his position at Bobbs Merrill have allowed him to further the CIA's goals?
Right.
Whatever those might have been.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We know Harvey was involved in some of the CIA's most sensitive operations,
Okay.
including the plots against Castro.
Right.
This suggests he had a lot of influence within the agency and likely access to a lot of resources.
Yeah.
As for Bobbs Merrill, well, imagine the possibilities.
Right.
He could have used the company as a cover for moving money or personnel or even for spreading propaganda.
It's like something out of a spy novel.
It is.
And speaking of intrigue, the article also suggests that Indianapolis, the home of both Bobbs Merrill and Eli Lilly, might have been a central hub for the assassination plot.
Now, that's where the article gets a bit more speculative.
Okay.
But the connections it makes are certainly thought-provoking.
Right.
We've already talked about Eli Lilly's involvement in the CIA's mind control experiments.
Right.
And how George H.W. Bush later served on their board of directors.
Right.
But there's another interesting detail.
Okay.
After Harvey joined Bobbs Merrill, two books that were critical of the CIA and its operations were mysteriously suppressed.
Okay.
One was Peter Dale Scott's The War Conspiracy, and the other was Brad Ayer's The War That Never Was.
Okay.
Both dealt with covert operations in Cuba and Vietnam.
Okay, so we have a high-ranking CIA figure who joins a school book company. And suddenly, books critical of the CIA are being buried.
Right.
You have to admit, that's a pretty suspicious pattern.
It is, yeah.
Right.
It's definitely something that warrants further investigation.
Right.
What's fascinating here is how the article weaves together all these seemingly disparate threads.
Right.
School book companies, Texas Rangers, the CIA, organized crime into a single intricate web.
Wow.
It challenges us to look beyond the surface,
Right.
to question the official narrative, and to consider the possibility that the truth might be far more complex and disturbing than we initially imagined.
It definitely makes you wonder what else might be hidden beneath the surface of everyday life.
It does.
What other seemingly mundane organizations or businesses might be entangled in webs of power and intrigue.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
And it's one we should keep in mind as we continue our deep dive.
Right.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
We've uncovered a lot of intriguing information.
We have.
But we still need to examine the article's conclusions.
Okay.
And explore the implications of its claims.
Okay. We spent this whole deep dive unpacking some pretty shocking claims about the Texas School Book Depository.
We have.
And its potential role in like a much larger web of intrigue surrounding the JFK assassination.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
So let's try to bring it all together.
Okay.
What are the main conclusions of this article?
Well, the article argues that the TSBD, the place we've always been told was simply Lee Harvey Oswald's workplace, was potentially much more than that.
Yeah.
It suggests that the building was a key node in a network involved in smuggling, espionage, and possibly even political maneuvering.
And it implicates a lot of different players.
It does.
In this network, ultra-conservatives, intelligence agencies, organized crime figures, and even, as we've discussed, seemingly ordinary school book companies.
Right. And what's really disturbing is the implication that these groups might have collaborated.
Yeah.
Either intentionally or unintentionally. To achieve certain goals. Goals that, in this case, could have included the assassination of President Kennedy.
The article doesn't explicitly say that Joe Bergen or other TSBD employees were, directly involved in the assassination plot. But it definitely raises questions.
It does.
About what they might have known.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible they were complicit?
It's hard to say for sure.
Right. Even in like a small way.
When you consider Burgeon's past as a Texas Ranger, his connections to law enforcement after the assassination and the intense pressure he and others faced, it's certainly possible they knew more than they let on. Maybe they were even threatened into silence.
The article's claims about William Harvey and Bobbs Merrill are especially unsettling.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that a high-ranking CIA figure ends up at a school book company.
Yeah.
And suddenly, books critical of the CIA are being suppressed.
Right.
It seems way too convenient to be a coincidence.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of pattern suggests a level of control and manipulation that goes far beyond just the events of the assassination itself. It makes you wonder how many other events, big and small, might have been influenced or even orchestrated by powerful forces operating in the shadows.
It's a pretty terrifying thought.
It is.
If even a small part of what this article suggests is true, it really changes our understanding of the JFK assassination.
It does.
And the forces at play during that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It suggests that the assassination wasn't just the act of a lone gunman, but rather the culmination of a complex conspiracy involving powerful individuals and institutions. It raises serious questions about the level of secrecy and deception that was prevalent during the Cold War era.
What I keep coming back to is that sense of unease.
Yeah.
The feeling that we might not be seeing the whole picture. Even now, all these years later.
That's the most important takeaway from all of this, I think. This article challenges us to question our assumptions, to dig deeper, and to consider the possibility that the truth might be far more complex and disturbing than we ever imagined. And it leaves us with a very important question. If seemingly ordinary entities like school book companies can be caught up in this web of espionage and intrigue, what else might be hidden beneath the surface of everyday life?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is.
And one that I encourage you to explore further.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Texas School Book Depository and the JFK assassination.
It was fun.
We'll be back next time with another fascinating exploration of a topic you might think you know, but probably don't.